Get your feet off my display case. Nora Kline's voice cut through the salt air like a gull's scream. She stood in the doorway of Kline's saltwater gifts, arms crossed, watching a 20-something in designer linen shorts use her hand-painted seashell rack as a footrest. The young man didn't even look up from his phone. Relax, lady. We're spending money. You're spending sand on my merchandise. Nora stepped forward, her flip-flops slapping the weathered boardwalk. That's a $40 wind chime you just knocked into the gutter. His girlfriend giggled, already wandering toward the next shop. Vance said everything here is basically free compared to the Hamptons. Nora's jaw tightened. She'd heard that name 3 times today. Vance. Vance Halbrook. The man whose rented mega yacht had parked itself off Seabrook Dunes like a floating middle finger to everyone who actually lived here. Pick it up, Nora said. The young man finally met her eyes. Excuse me. The wind chime. Pick it up. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Embarrassment, maybe, or the faint memory of a grandmother who would have slapped him for this behavior. He bent down, retrieved the chime, and set it crookedly on the rack. There. Happy. Thrilled. Nora watched him shuffle away toward the beach, where the real circus was unfolding. The Halbrook party had started at noon. It was now 4 o'clock, and the stretch of sand near the pier looked like a recycling center had exploded. Champagne bottles nested in the dunes. Paper plates cartwheeled in the breeze. Someone had actually driven a golf cart onto the beach and abandoned it near the waterline, its wheels already sinking. Tish Alvarez appeared at Nora's elbow, her surfboard tucked under one arm. You seeing this? Hard to miss. I counted 14 plastic cups in the last 10 minutes. 14. And that lady in the gold bikini just let her kid bury a whole bag of chips in the sand because he thought it was funny. Nora exhaled slowly. Where's Miles? Your boy? Down by the rocks. Said he saw something weird wash up. That was never good. Weird things washed up on Seabrook all the time. Dead jellyfish. Tangled fishing line. Once, an entire cooler full of frozen shrimp that had fallen off a boat. But Miles had a sixth sense for the actually bad stuff. Nora started walking. Miles Kline was knee-deep in wet sand when she found him, his arms wrapped around something that looked like a giant gray water balloon. Mom, don't touch it. Wasn't planning to. Nora stopped 3 feet away, her nose wrinkling. What is that? No idea. Miles shifted his grip, and the thing wobbled obscenely. It was the size of a beach ball, maybe bigger, with a surface that gleamed like snot. It was half this size 20 minutes ago. Then the tide came in. It's growing. Absorbing. Watch. He let a small wave lap against the base. The blob shuddered and expanded another inch. Nora felt her stomach drop. That's not natural. Nope. Miles finally hauled it free with a wet sucking sound. A cluster of tourists had gathered, phones out, filming. Perfect. Just perfect. Is that a jellyfish? Someone called. It's toxic waste, another voice shrieked. Everyone calm down, Miles said, but his voice was drowned out by the rising chatter. He set the blob on dry sand and stepped back, wiping his hands on his shorts. The thing sat there, quivering, reflecting the afternoon sun like a nightmare jello mold. A woman in a crisp linen dress pushed through the crowd. Serena Halbrook. Nora recognized her from the society pages that occasionally drifted into the shop wrapped around candle deliveries. Blonde. Polished. The kind of beautiful that required a team. What's happening here? Serena's voice was cool, controlled. We're trying to host an event. Your event, Nora said, appears to be generating some byproducts. Excuse me. Trash. Pollution. General disrespect for shared public space. Nora gestured toward the debris field behind them. Ring any bells? Serena's smile didn't waver, but her eyes went flat. I'm sure our catering team will handle cleanup. There's no need for dramatics. Dramatics? Miles stepped forward, sand still clinging to his forearms. This thing came from somewhere. It's industrial. Look at it. On cue, the blob absorbed another wave and swelled visibly. A child screamed. Someone dropped their snow cone. A young person pushed through the crowd, their oversized sunglasses catching the light. Cass Halbrook had the same bone structure as their mother, the same carefully arranged confidence. But where Serena was ice, Cass burned with something sharper. Can we not do this right now? Cass's voice dripped with annoyance. It's a jellyfish, or seaweed, or whatever. Just throw it away. Miles turned slowly. Throw it away. Yeah, problem solved. Like the champagne bottles your guests threw away, the plastic cups, the entire golf cart someone abandoned in the surf zone. Cass's jaw tightened. That's not. Or maybe like the cigarette butts I pulled out of a sea turtle's mouth last month. Just throw it away, right? Because away is some magical place where consequences don't exist. The crowd had gone quiet. Phones were still recording, but the energy had shifted. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was confrontation. Cass took off their sunglasses, and for a moment, something vulnerable flickered across their face. Then it vanished, buried under layers of practiced indifference. You don't know us, Cass said quietly. You don't know what we. County Environmental Services. The shout came from the boardwalk. A woman in a khaki uniform was pushing through the crowd, her expression grim. She wore gloves up to her elbows and carried a testing kit that looked entirely too serious for a sunny Saturday. She stopped at the edge of the sand, staring at the blob. Nobody touched that, she said. Already did, Miles replied. The woman's face went pale. When? About 20 minutes ago. What? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she knelt, opened her kit, and extracted a small swab. The blob quivered as she touched it, and a thin tendril of something oily leaked onto the sand. I'm going to need everyone to clear this area, she said. Now. What is it? Nora demanded. The woman looked up, and the fear in her eyes was worse than any answer. I don't know yet. But if it's what I think it is, this beach might not be open tomorrow. Behind them, the Halbrook party continued. Music thumped. Laughter echoed. But on this stretch of sand, the only sound was the blob, absorbing another wave, growing larger and waiting. Contamination warning. Effective immediately. The words hung in the salt air like a death sentence. Nora stared at the bright orange sign being hammered into the sand, each strike of the mallet driving the nail deeper into her chest. You can't do this. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. It's June. June, Marcus. Do you understand what this means? Marcus Webb, the county environmental officer, wouldn't meet her eyes. He was a good man, she knew. Went to church with her sister. Coached Little League. But right now, he was the executioner, and he knew it. 48 hours, he said quietly. That's all I can give you. If the test results come back clean, we lift the warning. If they don't, we're finished. Marcus finally looked at her. I'm sorry, Nora. I really am. Behind them, the boardwalk was already buzzing with panic. Shop owners clustered in doorways, whispering, pointing at the signs. Summer was everything here. 3 months of tourists buying overpriced seashell magnets and eating fried clams kept these businesses alive through the dead winters. Lose June, and half of them wouldn't make it to July. Nora's phone buzzed. Then again. Then continuously, like an angry hornet trapped in her pocket. She pulled it out. 17 notifications. 23. 31. Oh no, she breathed. The video had already hit 200,000 views. Miles watched it on Tish's phone, his jaw tight. Someone had captured the entire confrontation. The blob. The argument. Cass's dismissive sunglasses removal. The county worker's pale face. And then, because the internet loved a villain, Someone had edited it with dramatic music and bold captions. Billionaire family dumps toxic waste on public beach. Locals fight back. Beach closed. Who will pay? It's not accurate, Miles said. Since when does accurate matter? Tish took her phone back, scrolling through the comments. Listen to this one. Eat the rich, starting with these clowns. And this, someone find out where their yacht is docked. Oh, and my personal favorite. That hot angry guy should run for mayor. I'm not running for mayor. You're missing the point. This is a wildfire now. The Halbrooks are the villains, your mom's the hero, and that blob is basically a character with its own fan account. Miles rubbed his forehead. The blob. They still didn't know what it was. The county had taken samples, sealed the area, and promised answers in 48 hours. But 48 hours was an eternity when your livelihood was bleeding out on the sand. His phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Tish warned. He answered it. Mr. Kline? This is Patricia Vance from Channel 4 News. We'd love to get your comment on. He hung up. Told you, Tish said. The Halbrook yacht gleamed in the late afternoon sun, all white curves and tinted windows. Inside, the atmosphere was considerably less pristine. This is a disaster. Serena paced the length of the main cabin, her heels clicking against Italian marble. An absolute catastrophe. Do you understand what that video is doing to us? Vance Halbrook sat in a leather chair, swirling amber liquid in a crystal glass. At 52, he still had the look of a man who expected the world to rearrange itself for his convenience. Gray at the temples, jaw like a cliff face, eyes that calculated everything. It's noise, he said calmly. It'll pass. Pass? Vance, there are hashtags. Plural. Someone made a meme of Cass looking at their phone while that man pulled toxic sludge out of the sand. It's everywhere. Then we make it go away. He set down his glass. Call Peterson. Have him draft a statement. Concerned citizens, environmental stewardship, blah blah blah. Throw in a donation to some local cause. Make it big enough to get headlines. Serena stopped pacing. How big? 50,000. That's insulting. Fine. 100. But I want photo ops. Handshakes. The whole theater. Cass appeared in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, hair uncombed. They looked like they hadn't slept. You can't buy your way out of this, Cass said quietly. Vance raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. I watched the video. I watched myself in that video. Cass swallowed. I looked exactly like the person everyone thinks I am. You looked fine. I looked like I didn't care that something was poisoning the water. I looked like I thought it was someone else's problem. Serena's expression softened, just slightly. Cass, honey, the internet always. The internet isn't wrong this time, Mom. Cass's voice cracked. I was dismissive. I was rude. And now people are getting death threats because of us. Did you see the comments? Someone found out which shop that woman owns. They're talking about boycotts. Counter boycotts. It's insane. Vance stood, his patience visibly thinning. Then we fix it. That's what we do. We fix things. With money. Money fixes most things. Cass laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's exactly what they expect you to say. The donation offer came at 7 o'clock, delivered by a man in a suit that cost more than Nora's monthly rent. Mrs. Kline, the Halbrook family deeply regrets any inconvenience caused by recent events. As a gesture of goodwill, they'd like to offer a contribution to local environmental efforts. $100,000, directed wherever you see fit. Nora stared at him. Behind her, the shop was dark. She'd closed early for the first time in 8 years. Wherever I see fit, she repeated. Absolutely. No strings attached. And in exchange? The man's smile flickered. The family would appreciate a joint statement. Something expressing mutual commitment to the community. Perhaps a photo opportunity. So the strings are attached. They're just invisible. Mrs. Kline, get out of my shop. He blinked. I'm sorry. You heard me. Nora stepped forward, and despite being half his size, she somehow seemed to fill the entire doorway. You want to buy my silence? You want me to smile next to people who treated this beach like a garbage dump and then acted shocked when garbage showed up? You want me to help clean up their reputation while my neighbors are losing their businesses? The offer is generous. The offer is hush money. And I don't hush. She grabbed the door. Tell your bosses that if they want to help this community, they can start by telling the truth about where that blob came from. She slammed the door so hard the wind chimes sang. Miles found the preliminary report at midnight. He wasn't supposed to have it. But Marcus Webb owed him a favor from the sea turtle incident, and some debts transcended bureaucracy. The blob was synthetic. Specifically, it was a superabsorbent polymer gel used in cold chain shipping, the kind of thing that kept vaccines cold during transport, or seafood, or anything that needed to stay frozen across long distances. He scrolled down, found the manufacturer information, found the distribution network, and there, buried in a footnote, found 3 words that changed everything. Halbrook Logistics, LLC. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Saw the report. We need to talk. Pier, 6 a.m. Come alone. See. Miles stared at the screen. See Cass. The rich kid with the designer sunglasses and the defensive smirk. The one who'd told him to just throw it away. He should ignore it. Should take the report straight to Marcus and let the county handle things properly. But proper took time. And time was something Seabrook Dunes didn't have. He typed back, I'll be there. Outside, the ocean kept its secrets, and somewhere in the darkness, the blob sat in its sealed containment unit, waiting for the water that would make it grow again. The pier at 6 in the morning was a different world. No tourists, no screaming children, just the creak of old wood and the slap of waves against barnacled posts. Miles arrived at 5:47. He wasn't about to let Cass Halbrook catch him off guard. But when he reached the end of the pier, Cass was already there, sitting on the edge, feet dangling over the water, holding 2 cups of coffee like some kind of peace offering. You're early, Cass said without turning around. So are you. Couldn't sleep. Cass finally looked back, and Miles was startled by what he saw. No sunglasses. No designer confidence. Just dark circles and something that looked dangerously close to genuine exhaustion. I figured you couldn't either. Miles approached slowly, accepted the coffee, and sat down a careful 3 feet away. The cup was warm. The gesture was unexpected. Why am I here, Cass? Because you found the report. Cass took a sip, grimaced. This coffee is terrible, by the way. Only place open was that gas station on Route 9. The report, Miles repeated. Halbrook Logistics. Your family's company. My father's company. There's a difference. Is there? Cass turned to face him fully, and for the first time, Miles saw something beneath the polished exterior. Not anger. Not defensiveness. Something raw. I didn't know, Cass said quietly. About the gel packs. About any of it. I thought we were just, I don't know, having a stupid party on a beach. I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think. I know. Cass's voice cracked slightly. I know that now. They sat in silence for a moment. A pelican dove nearby came up empty and flapped away in disgust. So what do you want? Miles asked. Absolution. A gold star for feeling bad. I want to help fix it. Miles laughed. He couldn't help it. You. Help fix it. I know the company's supply routes. I know which warehouses handle cold chain materials. I know which managers cut corners and which ones actually follow protocol. Cass pulled out a phone, started scrolling. That gel pack didn't just wash up randomly. Someone dumped it. And I think I know where to start looking. Why would you help us? Your own family. Because my family is about to throw money at this until it goes away, and money doesn't actually fix anything. It just buries things deeper. Cass met his eyes. I don't want to be buried anymore. Miles studied the face in front of him, searching for the lie, the angle, the rich kid manipulation he'd learned to expect. He found only exhaustion and something that might have been hope. Fine, he said, but we do this my way. No PR stunts. No photo ops. Just work. Just work, Cass agreed. And if you're playing me, you'll feed me to the seagulls. I know. Cass almost smiled. That guy over there has been staring at us for 10 minutes. I think he's their king or something. Miles glanced over. The seagull king stood on a nearby post, fat and imperious, watching them with what could only be described as judgment. That's Gerald, Miles said. He's stolen more sandwiches than anyone can count. Gerald, Cass nodded slowly. Okay, Gerald the seagull. This town is weird. You don't know the half of it. By noon, they'd mapped out a plan. Cass had access to shipping manifests. Miles knew every inch of the coastline. Together, they could trace where the gel packs might have entered the water and, more importantly, whether it was accident or intention. But first, there was the matter of the beach. The contamination zone is still sealed, Miles said, spreading a hand-drawn map across the hood of his truck. But the rest of the shoreline is public. And right now, it looks like a landfill. Cass winced. The party, plus 3 days of nobody cleaning because everyone's been too busy panicking about closure. Miles tapped the map. If we want the town to believe we're actually trying to help, we start here. Manual cleanup. No cameras. No announcements. When? Tonight. After sunset. Less attention. Cass hesitated. My parents will notice if I disappear. Then let them notice. Something shifted in Cass's expression. A decision being made. A line being crossed. Okay, Cass said. Tonight. The beach at midnight was silver and shadow. Moonlight caught the foam of breaking waves, and somewhere in the dunes, crickets sang their endless summer song. Miles arrived with garbage bags, gloves, and a headlamp. He expected to wait. Expected Cass to bail, to send some excuse, to prove that rich kids were exactly what he'd always believed them to be. Instead, he found Cass already working. Halfway down the beach, bent over a pile of debris, stuffing bottles and wrappers into a bag that was almost full. No designer clothes tonight. Just old jeans, a faded t-shirt, and sneakers that were already ruined. Miles watched for a moment. Cass moved methodically, checking each piece of trash, separating recyclables from waste, pausing occasionally to untangle something from the seaweed. There was no audience here. No redemption arc playing out for cameras. Just a person doing ugly work because it needed to be done. He approached quietly. You started without me. Cass jumped, nearly dropping the bag. God, you scared me. Sorry. He wasn't really. How long have you been out here? Since 10. Maybe earlier. Cass wiped sweat from their forehead, leaving a smudge of sand. I couldn't just sit there anymore. In that yacht. Eating room service while people in town are losing everything. Miles set down his supplies, grabbed a bag, and started working alongside. They fell into a rhythm without speaking. Reach, grab, sort, tie. Reach, grab, sort, tie. After an hour, they had 12 bags full. After 2 hours, 20. I didn't know it was this bad, Cass said, pausing to stretch their back. I mean, I knew it was bad. But this is what happens when people treat a place like it doesn't matter. I treated it like that. 3 days ago. Yeah. Miles tied off another bag. You did. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? Should I? Cass was quiet for a moment, staring out at the dark water. The moonlight caught something in their expression. Not self-pity. Something harder. Something that looked almost like determination. No, Cass finally said. You shouldn't. They kept working. Near 3 in the morning, Cass's fingers found something in the sand. Not trash. Something solid. Plastic, but structured. A fragment of a label, still partially attached. Miles. He came over, headlamp illuminating the find. The fragment was about the size of a playing card, embedded in a chunk of dried gel. The label showed a barcode, a partial logo, and 3 numbers, 742. That's a warehouse code, Cass breathed. 742. I know that number. From where? It was decommissioned 6 months ago. Dad shut it down after some kind of inventory issue. Nobody was supposed to be using it. Miles carefully bagged the fragment. But someone is. Someone is. Cass's face had gone pale in the lamplight. That warehouse is supposed to be empty. If gel packs with that code are showing up in the ocean, then someone's using your family's infrastructure for something your family doesn't know about, or something they don't want to admit they know about. They stared at each other. The waves crashed behind them, indifferent to human complications. We need to get into that warehouse, Miles said. I know. Can you get access? Cass laughed bitterly. I'm a Halbrook. I can get access to anything. A pause. Whether I should is another question. Cass. Miles reached out, almost touched their shoulder, then pulled back. This could clear your family, or it could bury them. Are you ready for that? The question hung in the salt air. Gerald the seagull landed nearby, as if waiting for the answer himself. Cass looked at the pile of filled garbage bags. 23 now. 23 bags of proof that they could do more than just exist in privilege. I'm ready, Cass said. Whatever it is, I'm ready to know. Dawn was starting to pink the horizon. They had hours of work behind them and days of investigation ahead. But for the first time since the blob emerged from the sand, something felt possible. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a start. Smile, everyone. Show Seabrook we care. The photographer's voice was aggressively cheerful, bouncing off the morning crowd like a rubber ball nobody wanted to catch. 50 volunteers stood arranged on the beach, holding garbage bags and recycling bins, wearing matching t-shirts that said, "Clean shores, clear hearts," in a font that probably cost someone $300 to design. Miles stood at the edge of the group, arms crossed, watching the spectacle unfold. This was your mother's idea? Cass appeared beside him, wearing one of the terrible t-shirts over yesterday's jeans. The town council's idea. My mother just couldn't say no. He nodded toward Nora, who was positioned front and center, shaking hands with the mayor like they hadn't screamed at each other about permit fees 6 months ago. Politics. I'm familiar. The event had come together in 48 hours, a desperate attempt to show unity while the contamination tests were still pending. Local businesses had donated supplies. The high school environmental club had made banners. Even Bo, the retired Coast Guard volunteer, had shown up with his whistle and his clipboard, ready to direct traffic like this was some kind of amphibious military operation. And then, of course, there were the Halbrooks. Vance stood near the refreshment table, surrounded by reporters, gesturing expansively about environmental stewardship and corporate responsibility. Serena floated between groups, her smile sharp enough to cut glass, making sure everyone knew exactly how much money they'd donated to make this happen. Your father looks comfortable, Miles observed. My father looks like a man who's never been uncomfortable in his life. Cass's voice was flat. He thinks this fixes everything. Show up, shake hands, write a check. Problem solved. Does it? What do you think? Before Miles could answer, a shriek cut through the crowd. Oh my God, what is that? The first pile appeared near the volleyball nets. Trash. Mountains of it. But not random beach debris. This was organized. Deliberate. Plastic bottles arranged in neat rows. Food containers stacked like offerings. And right in the center, a hand-painted sign on driftwood. The Halbrooks send their regards. The crowd surged toward it, phones already recording. The photographers pivoted, suddenly capturing something far more interesting than staged smiles and matching t-shirts. No, no, no. Serena pushed through the bodies, her composure cracking. We didn't. Mom. Cass grabbed her arm. Stop. You're making it worse. Someone is framing us. And you're giving them exactly what they want. A second shriek from the opposite end of the beach. Another pile. Another sign. Money can't buy a clean conscience. Then a third, near the pier. Ask the Klines who really pollutes. Miles felt his stomach drop. He sprinted toward the pier, sand flying beneath his feet, until he reached the pile and saw what was mixed in with the trash. Packaging materials. Shipping labels. From Kline's saltwater gifts. No, he breathed. No, this is wrong. We don't. Mom doesn't. Tish appeared beside him, face pale. Someone went through your dumpster. Miles, someone literally dug through your garbage to do this. The crowd was fracturing now. Half were filming the Halbrook piles, screaming about rich people and accountability. The other half were staring at the Kline evidence, murmuring about hypocrisy and stones and glass houses. And in the middle of it all, Nora and Vance stood 10 feet apart, both looking at each other like they'd just discovered a new species of enemy. Your people did this, Vance growled. My people. Nora's laugh was sharp enough to wound. My people are trying to survive your people's mess. That's my family's name on those signs. And that's my shop's labels in that pile? You think I wanted this? You think I spent 30 years building a reputation just to have some? Everyone shut up. The voice was young, loud, and absolutely done. Cass stood on top of a lifeguard chair, borrowed megaphone in hand, looking like someone who had just set fire to every bridge they'd ever built. Shut up and listen, Cass continued. All of you. This is a setup. Someone wants us fighting. Someone wants this beach closed and this town divided. And we're giving it to them on a silver platter. Cass. Serena's voice was ice and warning. Get down from there right now. No, Mom. For once in my life, no. Cass jumped down, landing awkwardly in the sand, and marched toward the nearest pile. Look at this. Really look. These bottles are clean. The labels are perfect. This isn't beach trash that washed up over weeks. This is staged. Planted. Probably within the last hour. Miles followed, picking up a container from the Kline pile. Cass was right. The plastic was pristine. No salt residue. No sun damage. No sand worn into the cracks. This is from a dumpster, he said slowly. Recently collected. Someone drove here with all of this. But who? Someone shouted from the crowd. Who would do this? Miles and Cass exchanged glances. The warehouse code. The decommissioned facility. The gel packs that shouldn't exist. We don't know yet, Miles said carefully. But we're going to find out. The crowd dispersed in fragments. Some stayed to clean. The real trash, the planted trash, all of it mixed together now in one contaminated mess. Others left to post their videos, to argue in comment sections, to add fuel to fires they didn't understand. Miles found Cass behind the equipment shed, sitting on an overturned bucket, head in their hands. That was either very brave or very stupid, Miles said. Probably both. Cass looked up, eyes red. My mother's going to kill me. Actually kill me. There will be a tasteful funeral and a generous donation to charity in my name. You did the right thing. Did I? Because right now it feels like I just made everything worse. The video of me on that lifeguard chair is already trending. Halbrook heir has meltdown at beach cleanup. My father's publicist has called 6 times. Miles sat down on the sand across from them. When I was 12, I found a beach dolphin. Still alive, barely. Everyone said to call animal control, wait for professionals, don't touch it. But I could see it dying, Cass. Right there in front of me. So I got in the water. Held its head up. talked to it for 3 hours until help came. Did it survive? No. Miles picked up a shell, turned it over in his fingers. But I was there. That mattered. Not to the outcome, maybe, but to me. To who I decided to be. Cass was quiet for a long moment. Why are you telling me this? Because you got on that chair. You held your head up. And whatever happens next, that matters. Something passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. Something more foundational. Recognition, maybe. The sense of seeing someone clearly for the first time. We need to check that warehouse, Cass said quietly. Tonight. Agreed. And we can't tell anyone. Not my parents. Not your mother. If someone inside the company is behind this, we don't know who to trust. Exactly. Miles stood, extended a hand. After a moment's hesitation, Cass took it. The grip was firm, brief, but it sealed something between them. Midnight, Miles said. I'll pick you up at the marina parking lot. I'll be there. Nora found the note at closing time. Tucked under the register, between the receipt rolls and the emergency flashlight. Plain white paper, typed words, no signature. Sell before closure. Or lose everything. This is your only warning. Her hands trembled as she read it again. And again. And again. Until the words burned into her brain like a brand. Outside, the sun was setting on Seabrook Dunes. The beach was empty now, cleaned and cleared, but somehow feeling more polluted than ever. Nora looked out at the water. 30 years she'd been here. 30 years of sunrise coffees and hurricane preparations, and watching children grow up and leave and sometimes come back again. Someone wanted to take that from her. Someone thought she could be scared away. They were wrong. She pulled out her phone and dialed Miles. Voicemail. Of course. It's Mom, she said, voice steadier than she felt. Something's happening. Something bigger than we thought. Be careful tonight. And Miles, I love you. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, I love you. She hung up, folded the note carefully, and placed it in her pocket. Then she turned off the lights, locked the door, and went to find Bo. If someone was coming for Seabrook, Seabrook was going to be ready. This is a terrible idea. Cass said it for the third time as Miles killed the headlights, letting his truck coast into the shadow of the abandoned warehouse. The building loomed against the night sky, its windows dark, its parking lot empty except for a single rusted dumpster and what appeared to be a family of raccoons conducting their own investigation. You said you could get us in, Miles whispered. I can. That doesn't make it less terrible. They climbed out, closing the doors with soft clicks. The warehouse was 20 minutes outside Seabrook, tucked into an industrial stretch that tourism had forgotten. Halbrook Logistics had shut it down 6 months ago, according to Cass. Budget cuts. Consolidation. The official story. The chain on the front gate told a different story. That's new, Cass breathed, examining the lock. This place was supposed to be completely decommissioned. No security. No maintenance. Just empty. Someone's maintaining something. Miles pointed to the ground. Fresh tire tracks in the gravel, leading around the back of the building. And they've been here recently. They followed the tracks, staying close to the wall, until they reached a loading dock. One of the bay doors was slightly raised, just enough for a person to slide under. After you, Miles said. Chivalry is dead, and you killed it. Cass dropped to the ground and rolled under. Miles followed, his shoulders scraping concrete, his nose filling with the smell of dust and something chemical. Something familiar. They stood in darkness. Cass pulled out a phone, activated the flashlight, and swept it across the space. Oh my God, Cass whispered. The warehouse wasn't empty. Rows of shelving units stretched into the shadows, stacked floor to ceiling with boxes. Pallets of materials sat wrapped in plastic. And in the center of the floor, arranged in neat lines like soldiers waiting for orders, sat hundreds of gel packs. The same gel packs. The same wobbling, water-absorbing nightmare that had emerged from the Seabrook sand. This is impossible. Cass moved forward, examining the nearest box. These are discontinued. We stopped manufacturing this formula after the absorption tests came back too aggressive. They were supposed to be destroyed. Supposed to be. Miles picked up a gel pack, felt its weight. But someone kept them. Stockpiled them. Why? I don't know. This doesn't make sense. There's no profit in old gel packs. They're literally garbage. Unless the garbage is the point. Cass turned, face pale in the phone light. What do you mean? Miles set down the pack, started pacing. His mind was racing, connecting dots he didn't want to connect. Think about it. The beach gets contaminated. Closure warnings. Panic. Property values crash. The boardwalk businesses start bleeding out. And someone buys them up cheap. Exactly. The beach isn't the target. The beach is the weapon. A sound echoed from somewhere deeper in the warehouse. Footsteps. Voices. Miles grabbed Cass's arm, killed the flashlight, and pulled them both behind a shelving unit. They pressed against the cold metal, barely breathing. Two figures emerged from a side office, silhouettes against a distant emergency light. One was tall, heavy-set. The other moved with the easy confidence of someone who owned every room they entered. Shipment needs to go out tomorrow night, the confident one was saying. Pierce sighed. Make it look natural. And if someone's watching? No one's watching. The whole town is too busy blaming each other. Beautiful thing about conflict, Frank. Everyone's so focused on the enemy in front of them. They never see the knife coming from behind. Miles felt Cass stiffen beside him. Recognition. Horror. The confident figure stepped into a pool of light, and Miles finally saw his face. Derek Simmons, town council member, head of the Seabrook Revitalization Committee, the man who'd organized the cleanup event, the man who'd been photographed shaking hands with the mayor, wearing a volunteer shirt and a concerned expression. The man who'd collected donations from every boardwalk business, promising to save the very community he was trying to destroy. That's, Cass started. Miles clamped a hand over their mouth. Too late. Derek's head snapped toward the sound. Who's there? Silence. Terrible, infinite silence. Frank. Check it out. They ran. Through the shelving units, knocking boxes, scattering gel packs like grenades. Frank's heavy footsteps thundered behind them, but Miles knew the warehouse now. He'd memorized the layout in those few illuminated seconds. Loading dock, he hissed. Go. Cass dove under the bay door. Miles followed, rolling onto the gravel, scrambling to his feet. The truck was 50 feet away. 40. 30. Hey, stop. Frank burst through a side door, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. But Miles was already at the truck, engine roaring, wheels spinning. They tore out of the parking lot as Frank's shouts faded into the night. Derek Simmons. Nora said the name like a curse. That piece of Mom. Miles held up a hand. Focus. They were gathered in the back room of Kline's saltwater gifts at 2 in the morning. Nora. Miles, Cass, Tish, and Bo, who'd arrived with a thermos of coffee and the grim expression of a man who'd seen worse and survived. I never trusted him, Tish said, pacing. Remember when he tried to buy my surf shop last year? Offered me half what it was worth, said I should be grateful anyone was interested. I thought he was just a jerk. Turns out he's a criminal jerk. He's working with someone, Cass said quietly. They'd been silent since the warehouse, processing. Someone's funding this. The warehouse, the storage, the logistics. That's not cheap. Derek's a council member. He doesn't have that kind of money. A developer. Bo's voice was gravel and certainty. Has to be. Someone who wants this coastline and doesn't want to pay market price for it. Can we prove it? Nora asked. Miles pulled out his phone, scrolled to the photos he'd snapped in the warehouse. Boxes. Labels. Gel packs. The shipping manifest he'd glimpsed on a clipboard, showing delivery dates and route information. We have evidence of what's in the warehouse. We have the label fragment from the beach that matches the warehouse code. And we have— He hesitated, looking at Cass. Me? Cass straightened in their chair. I'm a witness. I heard Derek giving orders. I can testify. Against a town council member? Tish shook her head. He'll say you're lying. He'll say it's revenge because the town blamed your family. He'll twist everything. Then we need more than testimony. Nora's eyes had gone sharp, calculating. We need him to admit it. On record. In front of witnesses he can't discredit. Silence fell. Everyone understood what she was suggesting. And everyone understood how dangerous it could be. The fundraiser, Bo said slowly. Tomorrow night. The Coastal Preservation Gala. Derek's supposed to give a speech about community unity. He's being honored, Tish added, disgust dripping from every word. Given an award for his environmental leadership. Can you imagine? I can do more than imagine. Nora stood, and in that moment, Miles saw the woman who'd survived 3 hurricanes, 2 economic crashes, and 30 years of tourists asking if the seashells were real. I can make sure that award ceremony is the last thing Derek Simmons ever celebrates. The plan came together in pieces. Cass would handle access. As a Halbrook, they could get into any event on the coast, even one celebrating the man who tried to frame their family. Miles would handle evidence. Hard copies. Digital backups. A timeline that couldn't be disputed. Tish would handle distribution. If things went sideways, the video needed to go everywhere, instantly. Every news outlet. Every social account. Every corner of the internet where truth could spread faster than lies. Bo would handle security. His Coast Guard connections still meant something. The right people would be watching, ready to act the moment they had confirmation. And Nora would handle Derek himself. You sure about this? Miles asked her when the others had left. Sure, Nora laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm terrified, but I've been running this shop for 30 years, Miles. I've watched children grow up and old-timers pass away and storms tear apart everything we built again and again. And every time, we rebuilt. Because that's what Seabrook does. She put a hand on his cheek. Her palm was warm. Steady. This town raised you. It shaped you. And now it needs you to help save it. So yes, I'm sure. I'm sure that whatever happens tomorrow, we're going to face it together. As a family. As a community. Miles covered her hand with his own. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a very long day. Outside, the ocean kept its ancient rhythm. Waves crashed and retreated, indifferent to human schemes. But somewhere in the darkness, a developer was counting money that wasn't his yet. And somewhere in the salt air, justice was waiting to be born. The Coastal Preservation Gala glittered like a lie. String lights draped between poles, casting golden patterns across the boardwalk. A jazz quartet played standards nobody was listening to. Waiters in white jackets circulated with champagne flutes and canapes that cost more per bite than some families spent on dinner. And at the center of it all, beaming like a man who'd already won, stood Derek Simmons. Beautiful turnout, he was saying to a cluster of donors. Really shows what this community can accomplish when we come together. When we put aside petty differences and focus on what matters. Miles watched from the edge of the crowd, his jaw tight. Cass stood beside him, wearing a borrowed blazer that didn't quite fit, looking like someone attending their own funeral. I want to punch him, Cass muttered. Get in line. Is everything ready? Miles checked his phone. 3 messages. Tish, streaming setup confirmed. Ready on your signal. Bo, security in position. Local PD aware something's happening. Playing along. Nora, I'm ready. Are you? He typed back. Born ready. Then deleted it, because that was ridiculous, and typed instead, Yes. The mayor took the stage, tapping the microphone with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely believed their speeches mattered. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 5th Annual Coastal Preservation Gala. Applause. Polite. Practiced. Tonight, we honor those who've gone above and beyond for our beloved Seabrook. And this year, we have a very special recipient. A man who organized our community cleanup, who donated countless hours to environmental education, who reminds us all what it means to be a good neighbor. Derek was already moving toward the stage, his smile widening with every step. Please join me in welcoming our Coastal Guardian of the Year, Derek Simmons. The applause swelled. Derek bounded up the steps, accepted a plaque, and positioned himself behind the microphone like a preacher preparing to save souls. Thank you, he said, voice dripping with false humility. Thank you so much. You know, when I think about Seabrook, I think about family, about tradition, about the kind of place where everyone looks out for each other. Miles felt his phone buzz. Nora now? He typed back. Wait for the opening. Derek continued, gesturing expansively. These past few weeks have been challenging. The contamination scare, the conflict, the finger-pointing. But we came through it, didn't we? Because that's what Seabrook does. We face our problems head-on. Interesting choice of words. The voice came from the back of the crowd. Clear. Steady. Amplified by the microphone Tish had slipped into Nora's hand 30 seconds ago. Derek's smile flickered. I'm sorry. Nora stepped forward, the crowd parting like water around a stone. She wore her best dress, the blue one she saved for funerals and town meetings, and her expression was carved from granite. I said, interesting choice of words. Facing problems head-on. That's a funny thing to say when you're the one who created the problem in the first place. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derek's smile was struggling now, held in place by pure willpower. Nora, I don't know what you're. The gel packs, Derek. She kept walking, kept talking, kept that microphone steady. The ones in warehouse 742. The discontinued Halbrook materials that were supposed to be destroyed 6 months ago. The ones you've been stockpiling and dumping along our coastline to trigger contamination warnings. That's absurd. That's the ones you use to tank property values so your investor friends could buy up the boardwalk at pennies on the dollar. The crowd was no longer murmuring. They were shouting. Questions. Accusations. Denials. Derek raised his hands, trying to regain control. This is slander. This woman is clearly. I'm clearly someone who's lived in this town for 30 years. Nora had reached the stage now, standing at the base of the steps, looking up at him like a judge delivering a verdict. I'm clearly someone who found your threatening note in my register. I'm clearly someone whose son tracked your operation to a warehouse you don't own, but somehow have the keys to. You have no proof. Actually, Cass said, stepping out of the crowd, we do. The tablet was Beau's idea. Large screen. High resolution. Impossible to ignore. Cass held it up, and the crowd leaned in as images flashed across the display. The warehouse interior. The gel packs. The shipping manifests with dates that matched the contamination events. The label fragment from the beach, blown up to show the 742 code. And finally, the piece Miles had obtained that afternoon, a recording. Derek's voice, captured through the warehouse walls by a directional microphone Beau had borrowed from his old Coast Guard equipment. Shipment needs to go out tomorrow night. Pier side. Make it look natural. And if someone's watching, no one's watching. The whole town is too busy blaming each other. The recording ended. Silence crashed over the gala like a wave. Derek's face had gone the color of old cheese. His hands gripped the podium, knuckles white, as if letting go would mean falling into an abyss. That's taken out of context. That's not. Then explain the context. Vance Halbrook's voice cut through the noise. He pushed through the crowd, Serena beside him, both wearing expressions that promised legal devastation. Explain why you used my company's materials to frame my family. Explain why you tried to destroy our reputation while positioning yourself as the hero. I didn't. This is a conspiracy. The only conspiracy here is yours. Vance stopped at the edge of the stage, and despite everything Miles thought about the man, he couldn't deny the power in that moment. My lawyers will be in touch. And Derek? When this is over, you won't be able to get a job sweeping floors in this state. I want to say something. The voice was quiet but clear. Cass had moved to the stage steps, tablet lowered, face pale but determined. I spent the last week working with Miles Kline, cleaning beaches, digging through records, crawling through a warehouse in the middle of the night. A pause, a breath. A week ago, I was the person everyone on the internet was calling entitled, spoiled, out of touch. And you know what? They weren't wrong. The crowd had gone still. Even Derek stopped his sputtering. I didn't understand what this beach meant to people. I didn't understand that when someone pollutes your shoreline, they're not just dumping trash. They're attacking your history, your livelihood, your home. Cass looked at Miles, something raw and real passing between them. It took watching someone fight for something that mattered to understand what actually matters. Cass turned to the crowd. Derek Simmons tried to destroy Seabrook, but he also accidentally showed me what Seabrook really is. And it's not the yacht parties or the designer shops or any of the stuff my family brought here. It's the people who clean up at 3 in the morning because it's the right thing to do. It's the shop owners who refuse to be bought. It's the kind of community that stands together when everything's falling apart. A beat. Then Cass turned to Vance and Serena. I'm done being a Halbrook first. I want to be a Seabrook person, if they'll have me. Later, people would argue about what happened next. Some said Nora started the applause. Others insisted it was Tish. Bo claimed he was too busy directing the officers who arrived to arrest Derek to notice who clapped first. But Miles knew the truth. It was Gerald. The Seagull King, drawn by the canapes, chose that exact moment to swoop down and snatch a shrimp puff directly from a waiter's tray. The waiter screamed. Someone laughed. And suddenly, impossibly, the entire gala was releasing tension it didn't know it was holding. Derek was escorted away, still protesting, handcuffed hands gesturing at injustices only he could see. The mayor made a confused speech about community resilience. The jazz quartet started playing again, something hopeful this time. And Miles found himself standing on the beach, shoes in hand, watching the waves roll and under a sky full of stars. Room for one more? Cass appeared beside him, blazer discarded, feet bare, looking lighter than Miles had ever seen them. Always. They walked in silence for a while. The gala's lights faded behind them, replaced by moonlight and the endless conversation of the sea. So what happens now? Cass asked. Now? The beach stays open. The businesses survive. The county finishes the cleanup. We launch some kind of environmental partnership. Your mom's already talking about refill stations and reusable cup discounts. She does love a good initiative. And Derek goes to trial. The developer he was working with gets investigated. The whole thing becomes a very boring legal process that takes years. Cass laughed softly. I meant with us. Miles stopped walking, turned to face them. In the moonlight, Cass looked different. Not softer exactly, just more real, more present. I don't know, he admitted. A week ago, I thought you were everything wrong with the world. And now I think you're someone who's trying to figure out who they want to be. Same as the rest of us. Cass stepped closer, not quite touching, but close enough that Miles could feel the warmth of them, the steadiness, the potential. That's not very romantic. I'm not very romantic. Liar. Cass smiled. You held a dying dolphin for 3 hours. You're incredibly romantic. You're just bad at admitting it. Miles felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been locked for a long time, slowly opening. Maybe, he said. Maybe I'm working on that. They stood there, waves lapping at their feet, the future stretching out before them like an unwritten story. Then Gerald swooped down, snatched something sparkly from Cass's pocket, a keychain, apparently, and flapped triumphantly into the night. That bird, Cass said flatly, is a menace. That bird, Miles replied, is family. And for the first time in weeks, they both laughed. Not polite laughter, not nervous laughter, the real kind, the kind that meant something had healed. Behind them, the boardwalk glowed with new possibilities. Ahead of them, the shore stretched clean and waiting. Seabrook had survived, and maybe, just maybe, it had gained something too.